Good evening. I am Pete, also known as Risk for Awards, and today we are doing Meet the Punter Round 2. And before we start, I just want to give a quick plug to our friends at Hacked Up Racing, Horse Racing and Gifts. Joe repping as well, obviously the mighty Correct Rambler. Just saying that if you want to use discount code up in the top corner, RFR, Risk for Awards 15, you can get 15% off any of their stuff on their website. Very good website. Obviously, as you can see, both me and Joe use this. I'm pretty new to it, to be honest, but anything that's got Correct Rambler is a win for me. So anyway, on to the racing. We have the legendary golf and horse racing punter. We have GingerJoe. Welcome.
Hi Pete, thanks for having me on. Looking forward to talking some racing and having a bit of a catch up. Nice to see you.
Yeah, so this is the first time I've met GingerJoe. So it's all new for me as well, but he is going to tell me as much as he's going to tell you. So Joe, just give us a little bit about you. How did you get into horse racing? Tell us jumps or flat, and what do you prefer really?
Yeah, sure. So, Pete, I'm Cheltenham based, so I am almost bred for jumps racing. So it's always been my favourite. It's almost in my blood to be a jumps fan. But look, I'm a horse racing fan first and foremost. But if I am pushed, of course, I do love the jumps racing. The National Hunt really is what gets me going. Of course, being from Cheltenham, I get to hear it all year round. So yeah, jumps racing fan mainly for me, Pete.
Was Cheltenham the first track you went to?
Yes, it was. Yeah, I mean, I've been going since the days of Rooster Booster. I mean, he won the champion hurdle in 2003, and I went up there with my granddad. Even then, I was staying off school as a sort of 10, 11, 12-year-old. I loved it that much. So it was hard for me to step away from the sport, and I've just been full on into horse racing ever since, really.
So is there a favourite horse there from back in the day? Obviously,
Yeah,
you mentioned Rooster Booster.
Sure. I mean, I've got a long lineup, to be honest, Pete. Of course, Rooster Booster is definitely one of them, but I was in the glory days of Best Mate winning all three of his Gold Cups. I've seen English Dreamer win his Stayers Hurdles, Big Bucks, Moscow Flyer. So I've seen many of the great moments. I very rarely miss a meeting. But yeah, so the glory days of Best Mate, Rooster Booster, Moscow Flyer, they were the days for me. They were the days.
Do you think the racing compares, like as in from now compared to like back then?
It's very, very different now. Depth of field was obviously a lot deeper then as well. And in the championship races, you weren't often getting scared off by one horse as well. For instance, when Moscow Fly was winning the champion chase, he always had Wild Chief and Azertiop lining up against him, whether that was the Tingle Creek, even over in Ireland, there was a lot more crossover with the races. I think it was more... It's very different, but the depth of field definitely made a big difference to what it is now. And of course, the changing of the rules for the jockeys also makes a difference. You don't necessarily see the rides that we saw back in the day. But again, look, we've got some very competitive racing and some really nice horses coming through in recent years. So we could be on our way to another golden era at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's a bit hard when obviously everyone's always comparing. They want to compare the past to the future, but at the end of the day, you just got to move on with it, haven't you?
Yeah.
Still got good horses. So, like, do you specialise? As in, do you prefer hurdlers, chasing, distance, any sort of?
Either, to be honest, Pete. I mean, I'm really big into point-to-point racing as well. So I go all the way to the roots of racing before they even see a racetrack, and then of course moving into the bumpers. So I haven't got a speciality or a favoured discipline, if you like. I like all things racing from the moment obviously they see a racetrack up until the present day, really. So no preference. Jumps racing just as a whole, to be honest.
So have you found any horses as in that you've been point to point, got attached, and then obviously seen them all the way through?
There's a few, but not as many coming through from our side of the water. There's definitely better point to point horses in Ireland, but I definitely like to see where they've raced. That's always a big thing for me, and who obviously they've beat in the race. See if the form's obviously worked out since then too, and obviously just seeing what the trainer decides to do with them, whether they go and send them straight over hurdles or whether they give them a bumper career. I mean, that's starting to tell you straight away what the trainer thinks of the horse in regards to the future anyway. But for me, it's just fascinating seeing them from their initial racetrack, their official racetrack debuts, to come through into open company and things like that. It's great to see. I mean, that's one of the beauties of our sport, is that even the best horses live on through the other horses that are coming through presently. Of course, with like the Walk in the Parks, of course, you've got Vega producing sort of Facile Vega, Aurora Vega, Princess Vega. So anything from start to finish, Pete, when you get to see them, all their relatives, always great for me. Always great.
You can tell Joe's a real fanboy of these point to points.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so basically, in summary, if you were born in Ireland, you would have seen loads of Cheltenham point to pointers go through to winners. But unfortunately, because you're this side of the water, you don't get to see as many.
Yes, that's right.
So, so going back to obviously Cheltenham, have you missed a festival at any point?
Nope, never missed the festival. Again, even when I was at school, I just stayed off to stay at home and watch it. I remember bunking off for the first time, and I was at home thinking everything was all great, you know, and then my mum walked in, you know, just as the first race was going off, and I was sat there with loads of treats and stuff at about 13 years old. So, but by then they already knew I was obsessed. So I sort of got a free pass with that one, to be honest, Pete.
So has it been more like, as in, like, have you always, so obviously you've clearly always had a love for horse racing, full stop. But like, where did the punting side of it come in? Did it grow? Did that grow a hunger? Or did you start, obviously, between us? Was it the betting, as in you started obviously young, but like, as in, did it grow with the more betting, or was it just always about you were so passionate and then that just coincided with it?
I mean, for me, they do come hand in hand. There's no point sort of sugarcoating it. Punting's a massive part of our sport, but again, that's what sort of allows you to then become attached to these horses and make you want to watch again the following week. And again, that's the beauty of I think jumps racing over flat races. Like, we've got more longevity with some of these runners. We can become much more attached to them as well, and obviously we can follow their careers. And yeah, it's great to see when they obviously come through the ranks in their through their careers.
So obviously we talked a lot about Cheltenham. So how do you feel the other 6 months of the year? Do you punt through the flat as well, or is it, what do you do then?
Yeah, I mean, I do punt through the flat, but I'm definitely predominantly a jumps fan. But I definitely know just as much about flat racing, all of the different aspects there for sure. So I tend to focus a lot more potentially on the breeding side, the progeny side of things on the flat. But as far as attachment comes, I put a lot more emphasis on the jump season every single year. No questions asked, really.
So obviously, with regards to both, you've mentioned a lot of the to do with the pedigree, the breed, and everything for both jumps and flat. So where's that stemmed from? Because that's obviously, like, I had Lee last week, and it's a very different type of punting where you're starting from the grassroots and looking like, okay, who's with who? Where's this come from? Will they handle the ground, trip, stamina?
Yep, sure. I mean, even if we look recently, we obviously had such a super mare in Antepower, did such great things within our sport. And then only just a few months ago, we've just seen Mystical Power obviously reach the racetrack and win on his debut pretty nicely. And it looks like he's going to be going for the Royal Bond now too. So it's just great to see that we had such a super mare who made such a big difference in our sport. And we're now, obviously, she's still responsible for some of the horses that are reaching the racetrack now. I just think it's just a rather beautiful thing. And obviously you can see that in the style of racing with some of these foals that come through as well. So it's just great that we are within our sport producing the future as well, due to the greatness that we've had in the past. I just think it's quite a nice thing, and you don't obviously find that in too many other sports.
It's quite poetic words, mate, for
Yeah,
for a jumps fan.
I didn't mean it. I didn't
So
mean it.
So obviously going back to the punting side of things, you do have like your own shows and stuff like that. Again, I go back to the breeding side of things. So when you're first picking up your race card, is the breeding the first thing you go into, or you going in different directions? That's just one of.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It doesn't ever affect my punting too much, the breeding side of things. But I definitely notice a walk in the park on the race card straight away, and then hold a little bit of extra interest to see, you know, the prospects of what's coming through that day. But I like to use the progeny side of things when you're looking at bumpers and see who the relations are, and then seeing how they obviously get on in their bumpers. Because I'm not a big punter when it comes to betting in bumpers as well. I like to see the horse myself before just deciding this one's got a little bit of hype. This one is a son of X and Y, etc. So it's something that I really do enjoy looking at, but it doesn't affect my punting side of things whatsoever. To be honest with you.
No, yeah, no, I get that. Obviously, you've just mentioned about seeing the horses. So I'm guessing, obviously, you obviously are traveling a fair bit. Is that you trying to get to the racetrack as much as possible to see these horses, not just sitting at home armchair sort of punting?
Yeah, I mean, visually, I think that's the best way you can learn the game, as well as by taking things with your own visuals, basically. And being, I guess, from Cheltenham, I've got loads of racetracks around us as well. We've got Worcester, Warwick, Stratford, Hereford. So there's plenty of courses on offer outside of Cheltenham, which are definitely worth going to, especially if you have some nice races, obviously at Warwick and Worcester throughout the year. I've got Cheltenham on the doorstep, but yeah, I do love to get around to watch the other races for sure.
So obviously, being a lad from Cheltenham, you've obviously been brought up with the
Yeah.
greatness of obviously being top tier for the horse racing. But it sounds like you're getting around to see all. So basically, you like watching and obviously viewing in the paddock and the racing of all horse racing. It's not just I'd like to watch Saturday cards at Cheltenham. You want to go anywhere around the country to see the horses.
Yeah, definitely. Monday card for me at Hereford is plenty worth going to take a travel to as well. Again, you might have a nice horse in the bumper as well. Again, anytime you can go out there and watch some racing, I think there's nothing better than it for me personally. And again, I love a punt on track as well. I definitely find it's beneficial to be there when you're having a punt as well. So that's something I like to do. I definitely like to travel around to the courses. Don't mind if it's too near, too far. I will go there for sure.
Yeah, and I do think as well you get a great importance. I mean, it's maybe not so much now with obviously you get such great analysis on TV and stuff that a lot of things are pointed out to the novice punter. I'd imagine someone coming to the game would find things so much easier, as in you could know nothing about horse racing, and you could be up to the level of someone who's been following for 10 years within
Sure.
12 months. But like things like you say, I mean, the comments coming out of the Dublin Racing Festival about how hard El Fabiolo hit the line when he won, obviously over the extended 2 miles. Like people were just like, "There's absolutely no way that horse is getting beaten in the Arkle," and they took that, and it was just like because they'd been there and on track, they'd experienced that. It was just like everyone was still talking about John Bon, and to a lot of people, they were just like, "No, there's absolutely no." He hits that line so hard, and obviously the form in itself, and it was just you couldn't have picked that up off being at home unless obviously someone's put it on the TV from one of the racing channels.
Yeah, I mean, visuals are just really important generally for you to understand, obviously, what's happening within a race as well as the punting side. But definitely, if you're there and you can see the physicality of these horses and you see the turn of foot, how strongly they were through the line, you can also see how much effort the horse is actually putting in there on track as well. And that might give you an idea whether you're going to get involved next time out as well. Make you think, obviously, when that's so easily today, I'm definitely going in next time as well. Look fresh as a bug. Anything, all the benefits I think come from going to the racetrack and seeing them in the flesh. I strongly advise it happens more often for most.
Have you got any sort of track that you'd recommend? Just someone who's obviously only been to the big tracks or not racing at all?
Sure. I mean, if we look in regards to Cheltenham, I think Chepstow form works out pretty well. I think that's a really good track to go to. Probably the best day is the day after the King George because you've got the Welsh National there, but it's a similar sort of track, not too dissimilar to Cheltenham. They get racing quite high up on the track at Chepstow, and then you've got a long, steep uphill running. So again, you definitely need horses that are going to have plenty of stamina, which again, coming from the weekend just gone as well, there was plenty of that with the winners. So Chepstow would definitely be high up there for me. I think you can learn a lot by watching horses at Chepstow, and it generally takes a pretty decent, honest horse to win at Chepstow as well. So yeah, Chepstow, if it's not too far out for anybody, I definitely advise going over there for sure. Or Warwick, actually. Warwick's a really good jumping track. Need to be quite a specialist jumper there. So I guess I suggest people educate themselves on the tracks and then decide where they want to go and visit, because it's very easy to look at form on paper, but tracks make a hell of a different. I mean, the horses for courses saying doesn't come from nowhere, to be honest. So yeah, Chepstow and Warwick, I think, Pete.
Yeah, you do hear a lot of for Warwick and Sandown, both those 2 mile tracks. You hear a lot for the novice chasers. They like to give the Arkle trials because it's a proper
Yes.
jumping test. Especially Warwick. I remember there's a Skelton horse a few years ago, and they sent him around there. I mean, obviously he never won at the Cheltenham Festival, but he was good on that day.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
so anyway, Joe. So obviously Chepstow you just mentioned. I hear you've obviously been there this weekend. Is that right?
Yeah. Had a good 2 days there. Really good. Just great to see some jumping action back on the telly again. I think for one as well. But some really good racing to go with it. Always like the meeting. Generally don't do too well punting for the opening weekend for some reason, but had a bit of a better weekend this week. So thoroughly enjoyed that, Pete. Very much so.
Yeah, nice, good start. It's always easier when you have a few winners.
Yeah, it certainly is.
You got so what have you got? Maybe if you give us, I don't know, maybe a hurdler, chaser, maybe an eye catcher, something like that. What have you got or maybe any of those that you've got going forward, just for people at home?
I mean, I suppose the obvious place to start is the Persian War. Captain Teague, to me, was mightily impressive. And I mean, jumping onto Twitter that evening, there were a lot of people crabbing the form, and I don't know what people were actually expecting to see from him that day. The fact that Nichols pulled out most of his runners, bar himself, Nappers Hill, and Catboy, who won the bumper, I think tells you straight away that he was definitely going to be a little bit worried about conditions, and generally as well with Paul Nichols' horses coming on for the run. I was mightily impressed with what he did that day. He made a few mistakes. I quite like novices that make mistakes and still win as well. It gives them plenty to build on. I was quite impressed with him, actually, Pete. He's a nice mover, quite a big horse as well. Don't know what punters were actually expecting and finding too disappointed about that run, because I was certainly taken by that. And I'm not usually as taken as I am, or as I am with Captain Teague, as I usually am with Paul Nichols' runners. So, very, very good run for Captain Teague, personally.
Yeah, no, I agree. I saw a lot of comments on Twitter, and in my personal view, I thought if you just went straight to website, clicked fast result, saw he won by 9 lengths, Persian War, Group 2 or Grade 2 on debut, hurdling debut against horses that had already had hurdle run, you'd just be like, flipping, oh, this horse must be a tool. And if you'd watched the closing stages, you'd have thought the same, bar the fact he tied up a little, obviously, on that straight, as you mentioned, especially as it was a fairly stamina sapping. But apart from that, like, he did plenty wrong. He just looked like a horse having its first day at school. Like, even for Nichols, that looked like Nichols normally has them fairly straight, but you could tell he left plenty to work on. Like, he was traveling in snatches. He had to be like niggled up, and at times you're thinking, "There's no way he's going to get the better of these." But once he got going, and you looked at how green he was, even in the champion bumper, he was really green. He has got that tendency still to hang left, but you can tell there's plenty there. And obviously, for a man like Paul Nichols, I don't think he'll be too worried. He's got to sharpen up a bit. But yeah, no, I was the same with you. And I just want to clarify, obviously, to people who are watching at home, this isn't us saying, because as much as we're both anti-post punters, not everything is about Cheltenham. As in, yeah, at the moment, to me, this probably does look definitely one of the big contenders this side of the water. But at the same time, this was a very strong run for this time. Well, this time of year in particular, and going forward, I know obviously he's already set his targets out. I think is it a Challow hurdle around Christmas time, and he's going to have another run, which another run should bring him on perfectly. I'd imagine if he met. My biggest take from it was a lot of people were getting so excited. If they ran this exact same race again in 2 months, I think half of them wouldn't even have jumped the last by the time he turned in. It was just he just wasn't experienced. The rest were.
And I think with Captain Teague as well, he's definitely going to come on for this run. I know I've just mentioned it, but he wasn't dialed up to the 9s for that opening run. So I think we can mark up that performance a little bit there. And again, they got racing very early there, so he showed plenty of stamina to get the job done ultimately. And he's only going to improve for the run. I'm really surprised that so many people were disappointed by that run. And of course, it's a good thing because it's franked that bumper form from last year for us as well. So it's making the season ahead looking like it's it's full of potential for Captain Teague for sure, but definitely looks like the bumper form is going to start to stack up quite nicely too.
Yeah, definitely, because that's been an issue in recent years. Like, we've had some wobbly bumpers, so it'll be nice to see a bit of form. So what about maybe, I don't know, a chaser or a novice chaser, anything that stand out, especially obviously being there watching them jump the fences?
Sure. The Kim Bailey winner of the novice chase, Chianti Classico.
Yeah.
There's a nice type for you as well. If everything goes his way with conditions, I do think he needs it quite soft. I know he's got some form on a faster surface, but he's a galloper. He looks like he needs softer ground. He could possibly end up at Cheltenham with something like the Ultima a little bit further down the line as well. If he continues this sort of progression throughout the season, he got a decent mark from that win at the weekend. And again, he looks like one that's just still improving. He definitely low on miles, nice improver, travelled well around Chepstow and was strong through the line. Just plenty to like about his performance, which wasn't overly standout. But again, he could definitely be a type that goes down possibly the Ultima route come March for sure.
Yeah, no, I pretty much echo everything that you said. Like, I looked at backing him and I just thought, okay, yeah, no, 11-4, fair price. And I thought about it and I just looked at the ground. I thought, first time out, all of these sort of horses, I thought it's just not. I'd
Yeah,
rather just sit and watch. And I sat and watched, and it was one of those where it didn't matter, because sometimes you can watch a race, and if you don't get the result you're expecting, it can cloud your judgment going forwards.
sure.
And I didn't want to take that sort of view in a handicap, because I thought you may well do yourself later on. But Yeah, that was my eye catcher for Friday and an absolute standout all weekend. I thought that was by far, and I agree 100% with everything you said. Obviously, with regards, he had another one a few years ago. I can't remember off the top of my head that finished second to in the Ultimate and was well punted like a 3-1 favourite. And yeah, that would make complete
Happy
logical
go,
sense.
happy
Does it?
go
Yeah, happy
lucky.
go lucky.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, very similar prep. Like my logic, I think probably um, it wouldn't surprise me if they aggressively campaigned him and a few more. When you say, like you say, a bit more softer ground comes in, and they pick off. They may try October or November in a graded race. Maybe find that a little bit too strong, and then there you have it. Bang! Welcome to the handicap world.
Yeah, and I think
So
whilst they've got the soft ground as well, I think they'd like to get a few hardy runs into him now to have him ready for the race on the big day. Going back to that happy-go-lucky horse, he was potentially one that wasn't hardened enough, ready for a big, deep handicap like the Ultima. But Chianti
yeah,
Classico,
true.
he's definitely a novice going places, does a lot of things right, does a few things wrong as well, but still manages to get the job done handily enough. So I definitely think he's one to keep on side. Certainly looks like a graded horse. Potentially to go forward with. So yeah, nice horse there for Kim Bailey. Good to see him have a good one.
All right then. So right, so Joe, obviously we've talked a lot about racing, and most people watching will be racing fans because I don't talk about any other sport. But tell us a bit more about obviously yourself. So obviously you're Ginger Joe, but everyone knows you for not just racing but racing in golf. So what's the situation there? Like, as in, what's your week to week sort of?
Sure. I mean, I before getting into racing, as regards to having my own channel, if you like, I've had 5 or 6 years tour experience playing on some mini pro tours, like the Challenge Tour, Europro Tour. And I'd have probably got into racing punditry, if you like, tipping a lot sooner if I wasn't doing that at the time. But due to that taking a back seat, it gave me the opportunity as well to expand into golf tipping as well. And I use it's gone very well, and I've used a very different sort of method to most, where most people just have a board of stats that they're trying to pick through to find who is the best player, for instance, where I'll look at the intricacies of how high this player's hitting the ball. Are they hitting this ball left to right, off the tee, right to left? And just trying to find how well they're suited to the actual course, because it's all good looking at stats, but stats are based on 50 different courses that they've played in the last year, 2 years sort of thing. But you really need to sort of slim pick it and try and find a unique way to find the winners. And it's gone really well this year, Pete. I'm quite overwhelmed by it, really. I'm over sort of 1,200 points profit for the entire season. Of course, we're not done just yet, so it's gone very well indeed. Looking forward to obviously trying to find some more winners, and yeah, it's just gone really well. Quite overwhelmed, as I said, by the support through it. To be
Do,
honest with you.
do you think, obviously, due to obviously almost being pro and that side of things, and obviously you mentioned a lot of people are looking at the stat side of things, do you find that because of that, you've almost got like a niche in the way that you look? As in,
Yes.
like, so say I was like, right, I'm going to study golf tomorrow, that I wouldn't be able to understand the game the way you
Yeah.
do, even if I had all the information.
Yeah, 100%. Because I'm familiar with some of the tracks that they play at as well, so that always helps. And again, yeah, it's definitely unique because you don't have that information available to everyone else. Whether a player is a high ball hitter, a low ball hitter, a draw player, a fader of the ball. Where I have all of this, I understand how you need to use a course to manage your game better to get yourself round in a better score. And it's shown because I've managed to have some like triple price winners. I've had 100-1 winners. I've had forecast land. I had 4 selections in the Canadian Open. They finished 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I definitely think that the way I look at it, the aspects that I have to put towards the selections differs to most, because stats don't work at every course. They're very, very different. Yeah, so it's definitely a unique way of looking at things. I guess I've got an advantage or an edge, if you like, in that department. But again, it's become very profitable, and it's really nice to be able to pay everyone back that's supporting me and following my channel through the season with obviously with profit. It's always obviously makes it worthwhile.
Yeah, because you've had your channel and stuff for quite some time and your YouTube, but you're still fairly new to Twitter, aren't you? As in, you didn't have a
Yeah,
huge following.
yeah. So prior to racing, I've never been on social media at all. I've never even had a Facebook account. So social media is brand new to me. I've had Twitter for just over 2 years now. I'm really enjoying it. Again, I met a great group of racing goers through it, like yourself, the Cheltenham Exchange guys, the finishing line. So it's a really good way of sort of spreading your just getting to know new people, spreading your views. And again, it's nice that it's just become very profitable and people are paying attention. I'm made up by it, to be honest. The people are following. Yeah, it's great.
No, no, that's good. So how do you find, obviously, Joe runs his own Discord. We'll talk a bit about that later on, but just so through obviously the Discord, there's going to be a lot of conversation in there. How do you find the sort of split? Because for me, you get a lot of racing fans that will still be football fans from their youth, their young age and stuff, but racing and golf doesn't quite come so like as in lined up. Do you get a lot of diehard one, diehard the other, or do they dabble in both? Do they just bet
Yeah.
everything or?
I mean, yeah, I've got people. I have people that join my group that are predominantly racing fans, golf fans. However, since joining the group and obviously being able to see my full profit and loss and seeing how I'm very profitable in both sections, a lot of people have now crossed over and started betting on horse racing and golf. And some people have even now started taking up the sport of golf by backing some winners as well. So again, it's a group for everything. We even have football sections, UFC, NFL, all sorts going on there. And a great group of lads there to learn from as well. A lot along the way. I've got about 300 members now, and it's sort of growing about 10 every couple of days at the moment. So yeah, it's thriving. It's thriving, Pete. But having such a good community of different people learning off each other as well. Yeah, you tend to find most people are betting on everything now they've joined the group.
So is that you running everything, like you say,
Yeah,
UFC, NFL? So are you so everything that is coming through there? There are no externals. It is your brain is being channeled
yeah.
to those.
Everything in there is 100% my views. I also have a Cheltenham section where I do 3 Cheltenham articles every single day that get popped into there as well. So it's full of extra content. I do free
Yeah,
bet giveaways every week. I give away a racehorse share every single month. I give away racing merchandise as well. So loads of things. The group effectively pays for itself because it's become so profitable by backing, whether you're backing my horse racing tips, my golf tips, my football tips, whatever it be. It's become profitable, and very grateful again to everyone that supports the cause as well.
but you do have obviously with the Discord. Obviously, I'm talking about you putting your selections up. But there's areas where members can obviously chat and say, "Oh yeah, are you
Yep,
backing this? Yeah, we're all following each other," sort of thing. It's
yep,
quite
sure.
like because you keep saying community, so as if it's like a social sort of thing. So is
Yes.
there like as in they all follow together, like almost like a mini Twitter?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a general chat section, and then it goes to sort of members, bets, and tips, where if anyone fancies a selection, they can post their tip and their write up. And to be honest, Pete, they all of my members talk from midnight tonight to midnight tomorrow. It's 24/7, always something going on, and they're all learning from each other, back in selections. And then at the weekend as well, we do like a group bet where we all pick a couple of selections, combine them into a lucky 31. All sorts going on, Pete, from newbies as well that have never been interested in racing. I've got people from abroad that have joined the group, so it really is something there for everyone. And I do loads of educational pieces. Even talking about things like headgear for those that don't understand what different headgear does for horses, or what is a bumper. Just going into the details to try and educate other people into learning about horse racing. That really is the beauty of the entire game. Yeah, really good community there, worth checking out, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So where can people obviously find that?
So that is on Discord. I do have a link where people just need to click to join. I'll post you that link, Pete, and that is obviously on
I can
my.
put that in the. So this will be on YouTube, so I can put this obviously on YouTube.
Great,
It'll
perfect,
be in
perfect.
the comments, and then you can find Joe's group there. But
Per-
also obviously on Twitter. Where can they find you on Twitter?
Yep. So if you GingerJoe race, it's at GingerJoe Racing. And I will put my link at the top of the page as well. So if anyone likes to come over and join us and see what we got going on, it's very easy to join. Any problems as well? If anyone just wants to send me a DM, you're more than welcome to.
No, that's good to hear, especially obviously the educational side, because that's one of my biggest frustrations. Like sometimes you'll put a comment, you'll put say I don't know, oh, these horses are declared, or something very,
Yeah,
very basic and simple. And you'll get so many sarky comments and stuff, like people like, oh, yeah, that's obvious, or here's Captain Obvious and stuff like
sure,
that. But I
sure,
don't think people really understand that Twitter is a huge place. Some people don't have the same understanding. Some people don't have the same time. Some people are at work all day, etc. And it's just you're not if it doesn't make sense to you or it's too simple to you, then just move on. You don't
absolutely.
like yeah. So right, so obviously we've talked about your golf, talked about your racing. So going back to obviously both of them, something that I always like to ask people, you've obviously said you put a lot of stuff up. Do you obviously punt everything you put up? So do you back everything yourself?
Yes, I do. Yep, indeed. Again, all my slips code go into my Discord chat, so everything's there available to see. Every selection that goes up, I do punt as well. Yeah. Of course, I do get stuck into some other selections through the day, even as short as 8 to 11, 1 to 2 sometimes. But I'm not going to sit there and start advising people to back 1 to 2 shots. I just don't feel I need to be the one advising those sort of selections. But I will happily get stuck into odds-on shots as well, outside of the selections that I do put up. But every selection I put up gets backed, yes.
Yeah, and so obviously you don't need to go into like stake sizes and stuff. Where would you put yourself on, like say a small, medium, large punter?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if there's too many large punters left necessarily out there at the moment, but I'd definitely be a more than average punter. I punt most days, but I don't punt every race. I only back what I see, where I see some value, or if I actually fancy a selection. I'm not just going to get bored and then decide I need to put a lucky 15 on, for instance, because it just does not become profitable that way. So I'm very selective, but I will, yeah, I do like to get fairly stuck in, I suppose, yeah, compared to the average,
Yeah,
if you
no,
like.
yeah, no, that makes sense. And obviously that's something that everyone wants to hear. There's nothing worse than someone who's happy to say,
Sure.
like my one of my biggest pet hates is someone who says, "Oh, this is a certainty," or "This is the strongest bet of the day," or something like that, and you're like, "Oh, what are you having on it?" And they're like, "Oh no, I'm not betting today." You're like,
Yeah,
you should. For me personally, you just never know who's listening, and someone could be
correct.
listening who knows very little about it but has a lot of money, and they put a lot of money on what you're saying,
Sure.
and then suddenly it's just not right.
I say the same thing to my group, to be honest, Pete, as well. I say you don't need to share your stakes or anything like that. Just cheer on the winners that you're having for each other, because obviously we're all adult enough to manage our own stakes and balance. I'm not going to get involved there. So I say the same to everyone. Just enjoy the winners, cheer everyone on. And that's it, really. Just be humble about having a winner rather than how much you've won, because I think I heard you say last week as well. That's very true. The more you put on is also the more you lose on a bad day. So it's just about
Yeah, of course it is.
finding your balance, and sticking with it. Really, definitely don't go chasing and anything like that. Keep it responsible, I guess.
Yeah, because obviously going back to that is the fact that I also think that if you're in something similar to like what you're saying, where it's a community, if there's 10 people who all win on the same bet, if one guy's had £1 on it and another person's had £100 on it, if everyone's just either putting a blank slip or just booming it or saying, yeah, this is great, everyone's happy. You all go and
Exactly.
sit and having your beer, whatever. But if you've got, say, one person and they put, say, £1,000 on it, everyone else is thinking, oh, maybe I should have put more on it, or oh, that I don't feel as big. And that's something for me personally. Like every now and again, like
Sure.
I put a few slips up today, but it's very rare for me to put any. I'll put a slip up, but I won't. I don't put stakes on it because
Yeah.
I don't think you really need to, do you? Unless you that sort
Well,
of person where you want to say, I've got the big cojones. Look at this.
look, money's different value to each individual, isn't it? So again, that's where it all just comes back to just cheer on everyone that has a winner. It doesn't matter if a tenner to someone might be £100 to somebody else. So it really doesn't matter. Just enjoy it for what it is. And if you're having winners, it's always good, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So anyway, let's get back onto the horse racing. So that's what we're all here for, really. So Joe, give us a horse. In fact, let's have a little talk about his logo on his top. So Joe, what is the thoughts for Marine Nationale? Obviously, you talked about pedigree. Some people are saying he might not be able to jump a fence as well. What's your thoughts for this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit of nonsense, to be honest, Pete. He was due to go point to pointing before he went and ran in his bumpers, and it wasn't due to the fact that he couldn't jump. It was simply due to 2 meetings being cancelled, and that's why he ended up in a bumper at Punchestown. So with him struggling to jump, I'm not too concerned at the moment. And from a betting perspective, you really do need to base all of your angles on the basis that every horse in that race is going to ping every fence to sort of determine your angle, really. But for me, Marine Nationale is without shadow of a doubt the best 2 mile chaser on the planet at this point in time. As far as novices go, I really do think he's supremely talented. He's got this sort of freakish speed as well, which you don't necessarily see in too many 2 milers these days. And of course, now he's 5 for 5 as well. I just can't be more impressed with what he's done so far. He beat the Gordon Elliott talking horse, the man driving Divan, when he won at Killarney before winning his maiden hurdle at Punchestown. And then, of course, when he was at the Royal Bond, this is the performance that really caught my eye and made me think, okay, here you go. You've got your supreme winner now. You don't even need to look anywhere else. He just travelled so well. He jumped into the back of 2 horses twice. then made a mistake. He was shuffled back 3 times in that race over 2 miles and still managed to canter back and just sit himself back on the bridle. He had some ground, obviously, then to make up over the last 2 flights as well. Even over the last, when he almost bunny hopped it, his turn of foot is just freakish. You don't see that in any other horse. And again, the conditions were fully against Marine Nationale that day, and he still put to bed the likes of Champ Kylie, Astro Diamond.
Just clarify the conditions, just obviously for
so
people at home.
So it was heavy ground over at Ferry House on the day, and he had a lot of ground to make up 3 times. He had to get shuffled back. He sat back on the bridle. Mikey never even panicked as well because he knew how much horse that he had below him that day. He bunny hopped the last and he showed a turn of foot in heavy ground, which you're not going to find anywhere across the land in any of these other novices. I think he's so good. He then obviously went and won the Supreme, and this is where you got a lot of debate between the Facile Vega fans and the Marine Nationale fans, effectively. But for me, no matter how that race is run, Marine Nationale comes out on top because Facile got running first from the bottom of the hill, and Marine just picked him off. If they decide to go with the other tactics where Facile Vega just tracks Marine Nationale, he's not going to be able to pick him off because he hasn't got the same turn of foot. So for me, providing they both jump well over a fence, there is no doubt that Marine Nationale is the one to beat in the Arkle. I think he's supremely talented. I really do. I just want to keep telling you how good I think he is, to be honest. So I love him that much, but he's a very special horse for sure. Very special.
Do you think is he one that's most impressed you in recent years, sort of thing? Like, are we putting him up? Like, obviously we've had some good 2 mile like the Shishkins and Altiors. Obviously he's got plenty to go so far, but obviously we could be this time next year. We could be talking about a champion chase.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, again, he's impressed me no end in recent years. Novices aren't meant to be your favourite horses, but I just fell in love with Marine Nationale. I think he's almost equine perfection, and that's obviously something that we seek within our sport. I just think he's just abnormally good. If you expect any improvement whatsoever from Marine Nationale going over a fence, then good luck to Facile Vega finding those 3.5 lengths from the Supreme and more when they go over offences. Because obviously in the Supreme as well, Facile Vega has had his optimum conditions, whilst Marine Nationale, the ground fully went against him. He drifted like a barge pole on the day, and he still absolutely smacked Facile Vega. So for me, I really do believe Marine Nationale is the absolute superstar of the 2 mile novice division over fences. I can't see a horse coming out of the works that's going to beat him. I know Mr. Policeman's been highly spoken about by the Willie Mullins team, but he's going to have to be some horse if he's going to come out and beat Marine Nationale first time over fences. I don't see how he gets beat, Pete. I really don't. I think he's supremely good. I really do.
So you're hearing this first, fans, ready for when we clip this up, end of the season. Don't say he didn't tell you. But at the end of the day, like, I know a lot of people are knocking prices, and I know you're obviously beyond a much bigger prices previously, but obviously you've just mentioned there Facile Vega and Mr. Policeman, and behind that, this looks an absolute. You couldn't get much weaker market currently. And I know a lot of people say, "Oh, the 2 mile chase come out," and they will come out because obviously Mr. Policeman isn't a natural, it's just a peer sort of thing, and there will be ones that come out, but they're going to have to take some sort of pegging because from what we've seen of novice hurdlers or 2 milers switching, like, I mean, people talking about Sharjah and stuff, like, you have got to be joking me. If Sharjah beats a horse like Marine Nationale is like, it'd be like putting like a 19-year-old against a 40-year-old footballer. Like, I agree. I'm obviously nowhere near the strength of what you are, but I totally agree on the whole Marine Nationale front. And it's just exactly the same as you. I was watching for Astro Diamond in that race, mainly for looking forward, because I just thought they're battle hardening her, as Willie likes to do. A bit like Aidan O'Brien on the flat, get them battle hardened, teach them to race. And all my eyes were on her, but everywhere she went, because she was sat around fourth, he just found trouble everywhere he went. But like you say, it wasn't like, oh no, we're in trouble, we need to ride out of it. It was like, okay, a little nudge back on the bridle, little nudge. And he almost ran out of line in the end because it was so late before he finally got clear that it was like, what have you got left? Like, I can only get part of my turbo out. Whereas at Cheltenham, I was kind of shocked with how confident he was turning in. Like, Mikey was just like, yeah, all right, I'll let you go. Like, and that's the thing that's different for me from where you're saying Facile making up that sort of the ground. I'm not saying for one thing that Facile can't, because obviously it's Willie Mullins, but that is the only thing that I'd be saying it on. In the fact that, but he had more than the fair run, like, as in he was long gone. That was like, if you gave that lead to Marine Nationale, then there's no way he's catching. And when you give a lead, and that wasn't exactly a gift to make up that ground in that sort of under those scenarios, and he was long gone. I know people say, "Oh, he didn't meet the last great," but he was long gone, and he met the
Yeah,
last well enough. And it was just, yeah. And as you said, I think that, again, going back to obviously the Royal Bond, was that if Marine Nationale had got going earlier at Cheltenham, like as
yeah,
in if he'd say they'd met on the second last, I think you could have been talking 7, 8, 9, 10 lengths. It wasn't like, oh, three and
easily.
a half lengths, he's stopping. It was going and going and going.
It was
So
such a confident ride as well from such a young lad in the saddle. You just don't
yeah,
see it.
yeah.
And even if you listen
No.
to Mikey after Pete, he was just saying how Marine didn't even give a blow after the race. He clicked his heels and he just powered away. It was like he could have gone round again. He looks bigger as well than Facile Vega. I just don't see how a fence is going to suddenly turn this form around. I genuinely believe Marine Nationale is going to be one of the best horses that we have seen on a racetrack. And I don't say that lightly. I'm really willing to put my neck on the line for him all season long, just like I did last year.
Are you still happy with the 5-2? That's still fair price?
No, it's probably not a fair price from a punting angle, but it is the right price, yeah, for sure. I mean, there's
But
not a
are
lot
you saying
coming from.
is that due to obviously the current climate and all the way things have gone? Like normally you get 4 or 5-1. So
Yeah,
it's just the fact that the price
yeah,
is too short, but not the fact that he's the most likely winner.
yeah, exactly that. That's correct, Pete. I mean, anti-post punting these last 5 to 10 years has just taken off, especially in the last 5 years. So bookies aren't taking the chances that they used to take with anti-post betting as well. I remember you could get 20-1 for best mate to win his second Gold Cup, and you could also get it to win his third Gold Cup as well. You're never going to see sort of anti-post prices or anti-post markets starting that big due to the popularity of the sport again, which is a good thing. But it just means you've got to dive a little bit deeper into where you're finding your value. I guess that's and perhaps for people to be more selective. I'm definitely against people backing 2 horses in one race anti-post. I'm not a massive fan of that angle. It's okay to change your mind down the season, but I wouldn't be getting stuck into 2 horses for a race and things like that. So yeah, I mean, anti-post punting has definitely changed, and 5-2 probably is too short. But I can't help it, Pete. I keep getting stuck in. So,
So what he's saying is, don't take the 5-2, but he will be taking
but
5-2 and
yeah,
gamble responsibly.
as contradicting as you like, but that's it. Yeah, you got it.
Right, Joe. So we've obviously talked about Marine Nationale. Have you got another horse, like with a Cheltenham or any early season, any other horse that
Yeah.
you're thinking, yeah, I really fancy this?
Yeah, I do. One you just mentioned there, Pete, called Ashrow Diamond,
Yeah,
obviously for Willie Mullins in the mares hurdle. I think she's a great bet at the moment. I think she's 7-8-1 at the moment. She is slightly
yeah,
shortening.
she is sevens.
Yeah, so she's slightly cutting up a little bit in the market, but again, without going back into the Marine Nationale form, she's got very good form against him and against Facile Vega. And she has, of course, gone on to win pretty impressively over 2.5 miles at
Punch.
Fairy
Is
House. She
it
was at,
Ferry
I
House? I
think.
thought it was Punchtown.
No, it was
Not
at
the Punch.
Punchtown. Of course it was. Of course it was.
Yeah,
She
it's the
skipped out.
festival, wasn't it? At
So,
the end of the season.
of course it was. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. Of course. And for me, I think she's the best of Willie's mares at this point in time. So she's a 6-year-old. She's got 2 years physicality on Lossiemouth and Gala Marceau. And of course, she's already won over this trip and found it no problem at all. She's a daughter of Walk in the Park, which is something that always stands out to me, as I've sort of briefly mentioned. But for me, at this point in time, she is the one that's to beat in the mares, and definitely the one that you'd like to be getting on at that sort of price. Lossiemouth is a decent bet if you like it, 7-2, but she's not going to shorten up too much. And is she really a 2.5 miler? I don't really know what you think, Pete, but she just looks an out and out 2 miler to me. I know she did well to get back towards Gala Marceau after that mistake at that was Fairy House, wasn't it? But then I think I just don't know if 2.5 miles is going to be her bag. She's going to need everything to go perfect for her if she's going to be winning that day. That's for sure. So I think Ashrow Diamond, with that 2 years of physicality, that trip assured, that stamina is there, lovely turn of foot.
So just obviously, just because I don't know what the level of people watching, just
Okay.
explain the difference to obviously obviously you've mentioned 2
Yeah.
horses there, both Lossiemouth and Galamarceau.
Sure.
So just explain to people at home. Obviously, they're coming out of juveniles, so they might be achieving similar numbers,
Yeah.
but obviously 2 years younger. Just explain what the difference is to
Sure.
why.
Sure. I mean, there's a few things really to point out there, as well as that all horses, for one, are individuals, but mares typically take a little bit longer time to actually get their frame filled. So I would always be. This is something as well. Just slightly off topic, I wouldn't ever be interested in backing mares in bumpers and maiden hurdles if they're going against the boys, because I always feel there's more that they have to learn, or more physically that they're going to have to do before they go beating those sort of horses. And that does generally ring true if you go back and look at the bumpers at Cheltenham. Of course, you've had Fiona and Relegate, but apart from that, you've had next to nothing even contend in races as champion bumper. So they just generally take a little bit more time to fill their frame. And I think Ashrow Diamond being 2 years older and that win at Punchestown, for me, that makes her the one to beat. Whereas Lossy Mouth is going to have to prove she can settle over 2.5 miles, still be effective with that turn of foot. And of course, now she's going to have to prove that she could beat Gala Marceau over 2.5 miles after her winning really nicely over an Auteuil. So for me, at this point in time, Ashrow Diamond with the form with Marine Nationale. She's 2 years older, so she's bigger, she's stronger. She's a walk in the park. She seems to travel very easily. Nothing's too difficult for her. I think 7-1's an outstanding bet at this point in time, with the question mark that Lossy Mouth has to answer. And I certainly think when Ashrow goes and wins her first start of the season, she's going to be near on favourite as well. So without a shadow of a doubt, she looks the bet to me at this point in time. But maybe one more thing to mention regarding the mares hurdle, of course, because they step up to 2.5 miles, which is a big difference for furlongs, is we've obviously still got Love Envoi this side of the water, who is certainly no mug. And bar Honeysuckle winning last year as a super mare, she would actually probably be a little bit shorter in the betting. So again, 12-1 to her is probably a little bit too big as well. But there's just something a little bit special, I think, Pete, about Ashrow Diamond. And provided she goes to Cheltenham, I think she's going to have an outstanding chance in that race.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that. I thought it was interesting as well with obviously that French champion hurdle. I was shocked at how well Galam. So I don't know what the standard was. Like obviously you can look through the form, but compared to what obviously Cheltenham's standard, I was shocked at how well she settled and obviously won over at 2 mile 4. But yeah, it's interesting. Obviously you mentioned over this side of the water because surely Love Envoi. Like I'm not obviously recommending a bet because I haven't got the market in front of me, but I looked the other day and I'm pretty sure Willie's got the first 7 out of 8 in the market. So obviously he's got it dominated, but surely that's got to be overpriced at 12-1 when, as you said, or as we've both said, is there's such a big jump, like winning a Triumph hurdle. Like you see it with all the horses, like the Goshens, the Vaubands, like the difference between winning a Triumph hurdle and then stepping into whether it's a mare's hurdle, just a champion hurdle, any sort of graded race with the older, maturer horses. A lot of them do tend to struggle. And obviously, as you say with Ashrow, she comes from a different neck of the woods. She's been there and done it at a different level. I never saw, because I backed her for the Mayor's Novice Hurdle this year, and it never really, she just never appeared in the entries. I didn't see anything. So she just entered, 2 days out, just wasn't declared. And then it was just bang, she was back there at Punchestown and just
Yeah.
hosed up.
I think she had a slight tendon injury, but it wasn't anything serious. Willie just said that because he had runners for the race that he decided to skip it and go to Punchestown just to be careful with her. And again, being a mare, being careful with him is no problem at all. I'd rather them give the mares the time to be fully fit and ready to go on the racetrack, rather than taking a chance on a mare in a bumper or first time out of the season. So physicality to me is a massive thing in the mares divisions for sure. But like you said, Love Envoi is going to be no mug at all. Lossie's going to have to be a seriously, seriously good mare if she's going to be beating Ashrow Diamond and Love Envoi. She's going to have to be up to Antepower's standard, in my opinion. So she's going to have to be pretty damn good. Going to be beating these.
And again, everything has a price. If Lossy Mouth was sat there at 10-1, we might be having a different conversation.
That's correct.
But it's the fact she sat there on average 3-1, 7-2. Everyone knows how much I loved the horse last year. And put up about this. Well, it was earlier, about 2 months before this last year, like 16-1. But at the same time, there's no place for sentimentality and emotion and attachment to a horse. It's you've done your job. I really appreciate it. Like if you depend on what your price is to whether we carry on, you can still cheer a horse on. It just doesn't mean you have to back it.
Yeah, that's it. You don't have to have a bet in every race as well. That's exactly the point there, Pete. You can be sentimental towards horses, but it doesn't mean you've got to put your money down. Put your money down there too, because to be honest, more than often you're gonna come out with burnt fingers. So again, it just goes back to being selective with your punting and choosing your battles, and that's it. Like I said with Captain Teague, I didn't fancy backing him at that sort of price. I'm very glad he won. I was looking forward to seeing him go. Thought he might win, but again, 8-11 was no price at the time. So you've just got to pick and choose your battles, haven't you? Really, and go from there, I guess.
Yeah, so obviously we're talking about a few going forward. So have you got any sort of like maybe a dark horse, one maybe people might not be thinking about, whether it's again follow the season or maybe for the festival, just a little bit left field?
Yeah, sure. If we've got the Paddypower next month at Cheltenham, one of our showcase meetings. Really enjoyed the Paddypower meeting. If you haven't been to Cheltenham before, maybe go to the Paddypower as a bit of a taster, and then obviously come down to the festival. But I really like the Paddypower as a race. I generally do quite well in it too, so obviously that always helps. But I've come down on one, Pete, quite early on this year for the Gary Moore team, which is Nasalam. Quite a
Okay.
big baby of a horse, but I think this year 6 going on 7. He's going to, again, this goes back to physicality. He's going to be a bit better, a bit stronger this year. And he was running a really big race in it last year as well. He come into 4 out, absolutely cruising, making a bit of a move. And then he got badly hampered, shuffled back about 4 or 5 places, and then stayed on really well again towards the after the last fence, and only got beat by about 8 lengths, 9 lengths at the finishing line. And he's definitely not a horse that was ready for that sort of task at that point in time. But again, he's going to be much more mature this year. It's quite a big, hustly sort of handicap, not too dissimilar to the Ultima, really. So I think this year, with another year on his side, I think he's going to be targeted straight to the Paddypower. And he's off a mark of 142, I think, at the moment. In the race last year, he was 144 and running a big race, as I said, without that well, it wasn't even a mistake. It was a bad hampered problem from a couple of his rivals. So at 20-1, I think Nasalam's a really decent punt if you want one for left field at this point in time. I think he could go really well indeed, and probably going to be primed for the day too. So
I take it.
yeah,
Take it. You're going to be there for that. There
yeah,
on track.
100%. Yeah, every Cheltenham meeting, Pete, I won't miss one. That's for sure. So
There you
yeah,
go.
very
You've
much looking
seen his
forward to.
face. You can throw your pint over him when it comes
Yeah,
last.
yeah, that's it. All the papers go in the air, don't they? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. Look
Right.
forward
So
to Paddypower.
yeah, no, I'll be there as well on that Saturday. I'm sure
Good,
we can
good.
have a pint.
Oh yeah,
Right.
definitely.
So so right then, obviously we've talked a lot of positivity. So what is going to be your? So if I was to ask you, say, not so much a lay, but your horse, maybe a hype horse or a blowout horse, one that a lot of people are getting excited about, but it's just not for you.
I'm similar to Lee in the fact I hold some reservations about A Dream to Share. Clearly got a massive engine, but I don't even know what it is, Pete. I don't want to jump on just the fact that he is a son of Muhara and they haven't done very well over hurdles, but it is a worry because the stat is quite significant. But getting involved at 9-2 at this stage doesn't necessarily seem right to me on the basis that the markets for the Supreme and the Ballymore haven't really opened too much because we haven't seen too many of the runners. And probably at this point, I'd rather back Tully Hill at double the price as well, because he was running a massive race against him at Punchestown. And despite having a really good engine on A Dream to Share, one mistake in the Supreme and it ruins the entire race. You don't get any chances in the Supreme. So at 9-2, I think the price is a little bit skinny, but at the same time, if we look at the mares, I think Lossiemouth at 7-2 is also a little bit skinny. So I may even, there's a couple laid up there for you as well, Pete. Lossiemouth and the Dream Show, I think, at this point in time, because I think there's plenty to come out from behind them.
No, that's makes more than enough sense. So obviously we're talking anti-post punting. So what is your, again, you mentioned just a second ago, you mentioned that you don't like to back 2 horses in one
Mm-hmm.
race until close to the time if required. So what's your sort of, if we say like an anti-post cycle, say from now until March, when are you applying your bets? Like as in, are they getting bigger as they go on? Are you having multiple bets in certain races? Are you tackling the handicaps? Where are we going from here?
Yeah, so it's very, very varied stakes at this point in time. But I mean, my biggest loser with no doubt would be Marine Nationale. I got stuck in quite early this time, getting involved just the week after the festival. I did it a few more times prior to the Grand National as well.
Loading all the cash back on again.
Yeah. Everything that he earned me last year has gone back on. So so he'd definitely be a bad loser for me for the festival. But again, I just can't see him really getting beat. I haven't got stuck into as many selections this year as I did last year. Again, just trying to be a little bit more selective. And to be fair, I have already been stung a little bit with Impervious not running in the mare's chase, because I put her up at 16-1 last year before she won the event, obviously in March. But so I got a little bit involved with her again, and I find it hard to see her coming back and winning the mare's chase after this injury already. I just find it too hard to get stuck in. So I did get stung by Impervious, but Marine Nationale will probably be the worst loss for me. That being said, if we have a look at the mare's chase, there is a horse I've got involved in for Henry de Bromhead called Mascada. If anyone's seen my anti-post compilation, obviously, which you were on with me, Pete, I did put her up for my first selection. She won the Grand Annual at the Cheltenham Festival last year for marker 142, made really light work of it, sprinted up the hill away from Dino Blue, who won her next 2 starts. Yet you've got Mascada at 25-1 for this mare's chase and Dino Blue at 10-1. It makes no sense, especially when this is going to be her target. So I've had a good go on Mascada.
And she gave her weight. And she gave her weight that day, didn't she?
She did, yeah. She gave about £3, I think, as well. So it's some going as well. And it's not easy to win a race like a Grand Annual. You've really got to be a proper hardy type too. So the one thing I'd maybe say about Mascada leading up to Cheltenham is I wouldn't be surprised to see her beat in between now and then. So don't be too disheartened if she got beat first time out. I'd like to just see her stick to the mares programme ideally. Maybe start at Limerick in December and then go to Thurles in January. Which I think is what Allegory Devassi did before she finished, obviously, second in the race this year, just gone. So, Mascada's one I like. I've had a pretty decent go at a nice price there, Pete, to be honest. I think she's one to have on the radar at this point in time.
So generally, are you more happy, obviously, like me personally as well, very similar, is you'd rather have more bigger prices, a bit more scattergun approach now before, rather than, you don't want to be going, right, that's my selection. You'd rather be picking up 16-1 here, 20-1 here, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, just get a few on side, because there's so much guesswork right now.
Well, there's so many people, Pete, that I find get to Cheltenham. They have a little accumulator land, but then they find that it's only paid for what they've spent for the last 6-7 months, and that's no fun at all. You really can use Cheltenham to earn some very good money. So again, I've been much more selective this year. I've got stuck into Marine Nationale heavily, Astro Diamond pretty strongly as well, but with a slight reservation that Willie might just skip Cheltenham again and send it to Punchestown and Mascada. They're 3 big bets, if you like, for the time being. And then I've had a few small wagers elsewhere. But I'm trying to be much more selective now because I feel it'll give me some more profit come the day of come the week of the festival, rather than having too many losers and finding, you're chasing really by the time you've even started sometimes in that sense.
Yeah, I also find, especially with the novice hurdlers, like you look at last year's winner. I know obviously we'd seen Marine Nationale, but as you've said a million times, he was a freak. But generally, like you look at Impere Pass and Stay Away Faye. Impere Pass debuted, I think, in January, and Stay Away Faye was. It didn't matter when he debuted because he was so late to the party. He was 50 pluses. I remember looking over and my miss was like, "Oh, can you put this one on?" And I put it on the exchanges, and it was 50 plus. And then I was on Corbett's Cross, and they come down, and obviously I was like, I'm going to do her here, and she's going to shout her head off at me. And he just binned out the side door, and she was like, "Why did your horse run out the side?" I was like, "That's not what I want to hear."
If only we knew. If only we knew.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for that answer.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it just shows that how the novice hurdles. It's brilliant if you want to fire in a few 20-1, 33-1s. For me personally, that's a no-brainer at this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't want to be getting stuck into, say, 3 or 4 horses at like 7, 8, 9-1, because like you say, even if you back them all to win only, you're looking at 3 or 4 points max for your profit.
Yeah, it's just like, again, picking your battles, isn't it? And just trying to make sure you look ahead and try and get a little bit of a plan of where you see them go. And this is, again, with Astro Diamond, I've had a decent punt, but with a slight reservation that she may end up going to Punchestown. Okay, I've taken the risk, and that's part of the game, isn't it? But my advice to everyone is just pick your battles. Don't get stuck in, and don't get involved in hype horses. Oh, I've had a word for this, I've had a word for that. Who told you? A man and his dog? It's like you don't know any of the information. I feel like learn yourself, use your eyes and really get stuck in. I think, be your own judge effectively, and learn as you go. That's the beauty of the sport as well. I mean, of course, we all love earning money, but getting some results right, it really does get your juices flowing if things happen the way you see it as well,
Yeah, and that goes back to, that's another reason why I really enjoy the whole Cheltenham side of things, because you at the end of the day, you can teach someone and say, "Oh, back this or back that," but it's a person will learn how's best for them to form their own anti-post book and how they should do things, because that's how they learn to win. Some people could be like, "I've backed the same," so you and me could back the same 3 selections. I could win, and with the same amount of money, I could win X amount. You could win, and it's
exactly.
and you shouldn't be worrying about what other people are doing. You should just
Never.
be concentrating on
Never.
yourself. Which brings me on as well, Joe. So final few things, because I know we've almost run into an hour now.
That's fine.
So
Okay.
have you got any sort of advice? Obviously, there's maybe a couple of bits of advice. One for maybe someone who's looking to, obviously from the punting side of things, anything you could give them, and then maybe one who's looking if they wanted to start doing something similar to what you've made. Well, you're making a living out of your
Yeah.
passion. You
Yeah.
love horse racing, you love golf, and you're getting to watch these things.
Yes.
Obviously, share your content with people and provide people with, well, winners. Basically, make their own money. So maybe a bit of a explanation of anything that they could do.
Yeah, sure. I mean, again, if we start with taking a look at someone who's new to the game, first of all, always a bit cliche, but always keep it responsible. But the reason I'm so big on that as well, because if you keep it responsible, you'll never ruin the fun as well. It will always remain enjoyable. So don't overspend and don't go chasing anything, because then suddenly you're not going to enjoy the sport for what it is. And that honestly is the first and foremost most important part for me. In fact, that's why I got hooked. It wasn't because of the betting. I just love this sport. So yeah, keep it responsible. Give yourself a bit of a fund, and definitely be keeping yourself a profit and loss sheet so you know where you're at and where your flaws are potentially. I think that's very important going forward. Just trying to think of other little parts
What
really.
about what about obviously from yourself? So obviously you've got a very unique job that you carry out. If someone was obviously really into horse racing or golf, like what, as in any sort of advice you could give them? Like, how long have you been doing this yourself?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've been into racing since again I was sort of under 10, 8, 9 years old or something. Actually going to the races since I was sort of a 10-year-old. So over 20 years now I've been doing this, but for the past 4 years I've been earning money as a punter, if you like, actually making some form of profit. And again, that's simply due to being more selective, keeping track of my profit and loss, and maybe sticking to some rules. You'll find some yourself. Like mine, for instance, is never back an unraced horse. I also don't like backing mares and bumpers. And they're just two big no-nos for me for start. And then you start to find your feet, but educate yourself, look at different race courses. It's literally, I literally advise people just to start by educating themselves to different horses, different race tracks, and then keep it responsible and listen to everyone. There's so many pundits, tipsters out there. Just listen to what they have to say. You don't have to back their horses. And that goes for myself as well, and anyone that's following me in my group, even though it's been very profitable. Listen to what I say, listen to what you say, Pete, and then learn from there, and then start making your own judgment, because your own eyes are what obviously tell you, in my opinion, the best outcome towards races. My visuals, I think, work out pretty well. But yeah, keep it responsible, educate yourself about the sport, and don't slag off jockeys every time you have a loser, because if you haven't sat on a horse, you have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, that's a fair one. If you're blaming someone else, you know you've already picked the wrong bet or you've had too
Yeah,
much on it.
yeah. We get blamed enough in this sport, Pete, for over punting, and we've got an affordability problem, things like that at the moment. I mean, I'm not trying to go
Yeah.
down that roadmap now, but I mean, it's just another issue really that's there. They're taking a minority of people that can't afford or can't keep their betting habits under control and basing it on the entire racing world, and that's not what horse racing is actually all about. We love this sport. We love these animals. It's we love seeing the old horses come through with their young as well. It's a beautiful thing. So yeah, just keep it responsible and you will enjoy this sport. There's no doubt about it. Any chance you get to go and visit a stable and see these creatures as well firsthand, go and do it. It's an amazing experience, and you'll see as well, for those that aren't into racing, how well these horses are looked after and how much care that we do give obviously to these animals. It's not just about us making money. Of course, it's a massive part, but yeah, we've got an amazing sport that should be flaunted a little bit more.
Yeah, no. Oh well. I think everyone's learned something tonight. But Joe, really appreciate you. Really
Cheers,
appreciate your
Pete.
time, mate. I've just been a passenger, just sat here and obviously listened. So I think many people will be enjoying this. So just one more time, obviously, if you can give a quick plug, where can people find your content? Where can they find you?
Sure. So you can find me on YouTube and on Twitter at GingerJoe Racing. And also, I said I'll send you a link to my group chat, Pete, for everyone who wants to come and see my extra content, all the articles and write-ups that I do. And as I said, it's generally a group that pays for itself by the end of the month anyway. So if anyone's interested, again, you don't have to come and join. Drop me a DM and I'll give you some information on what's on offer. But Twitter and YouTube are the places to find me.
No, perfect. Thanks, Joe. And so obviously, finally, I just mentioned again, the mighty hacked up horse racing gifts. There's a discount code in the top corner, risk for rewards 15 or RFR 15. If you want 15% discount, obviously, as you can see, any diehard racing fans, to be honest, if you like anything horse racing, you're going to love their stuff. There's jumpers, there's jackets. You'll see me rocking out the wardrobe as the winter months come in. I'll be wearing it to the track in November. Probably won't be Korak because he's a little bit bright for outside, but hopefully maybe a Brave Man's Game or Constitution Hill, I think, come the winter. So thank you again for your time, Joe. And yeah, thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Pete.